14 reasons why the Perikatan Nasional government should resign. From the time the PN government took power, it went to extraordinary lengths to avoid having its majority tested. It used a red color fish and other smokescreens. When it went into the budget debate, the cabinet lamely enlisted the assistance of His Majesty the King, a king which it would defy and frustrate several times. Number two, on budget day, the cabinet had only 111 out of 222 votes, and 2 MPs had, of course, died in its favour. Constitutionally, not the absolute majority that any Prime Minister requires for a budget vote. This you will see if you look at Article 43 carefully and Parliamentary conventions. PN supporters quote Article 62, Clause 3 and argue that a simple majority is quite enough. Now that may be true for ordinary bills, but not for supply bills involving the budget. Number 3, when the cabinet went to invoke the emergency before His Majesty the King, in my view, none of the 3 preconditions in Article 153, which were matters of great threat to the nation, ever existed. Number 4, when the cabinet could have used existing laws to overcome the pandemic, for example, by a proper enforcement of the Prevention and Control of the Infectious Diseases Act 1988 or PCIDA, or failing that, escalated to the National Security Council Act, which could have been used, the cabinet sidestepped all of that by escalating a public health issue, which later it mishandled, into an unnecessary emergency. Number 5, when the King demanded in the Emergency Proclamation document itself and the emergency laws that the cabinet was to lay these material before Parliament for its approval under Article 150, Clause 3, on more than 5 occasions, the cabinet refused the King's request. Number 6, the cabinet went even further to frustrate Article 150, Clause 3, which demanded that the proclamation and the emergency laws, as I said, were to be laid before Parliament for its approval. The cabinet created its own rules, the emergency laws, illegally. It totally suspended Parliament from meeting. It went so far as to limit the Constitution by a law that said that any law that was contrary to these emergency ordinance provisions were ineffective. Look at Section 1018 of the Emergency Essential Powers Ordinance 2021. Number 7, on the 26th of July, the cabinet shocked an entire and incredulous nation by saying that it had, on its own volition, revoked the emergency laws without even the King knowing about it, let alone Parliament, particularly when the cabinet had no legal or constitutional power to do so. And even before the laying before Parliament procedure under Article 150 had even been completed. Number 8, on the 26th and 27th of July 2021, when it could not retreat from the illegal position that it had put itself into, the Deputy Speaker declared Parliament had to be shut down indefinitely because of COVID-19, an excuse so frequently used to repeatedly avoid a parliamentary test of majority. It was a rule, the COVID rule, more honoured in its breach in durian parties and large gatherings in leaders' homes, while the rest of the country were forced, on pain of criminal sanction, to observe social distancing and other restrictive rules. Number 9, under the PCIDA, a building can only be shut down to disinfect it. You know this. Buildings do not get ill or die of COVID. People do. You know that. Yet, Parliament gets shut down at crucial constitutional moments. Have you noticed that? Number 10, on July the 29th, the Deputy Prime Minister said that the PN government had the support of more than 110 MPs and that this was enough to sustain its power. He was too coy to mention what numbers they had. That he spoke of it showed that the government, in fact, lacked the majority and had to assure a doubting nation. If the government had had the majority, he need not have said anything. Number 11. A few days ago, I think it was on the 3rd of August 2021, a significant number of UMNO MPs abandoned the PN coalition. Yet the cabinet is still trying to stay in power unconstitutionally. It postpones the parliamentary sitting when there is no such power in the constitution. Number 12. The pandemic has intensified and become worse despite all the cabinet's inept, ill-timed and maladroit attempts. Number 13. The cabinet has proven again and again that it has no leadership quality and cannot steer the nation out of trouble. And number 14, the ultimate reason is, on the 3rd of August, at least 8 UMNO MPs publicly withdrew support from PN and from Tan Sri Maidin Yassin, the incumbent Prime Minister. His support has fallen to at least a number between 97 and 103 MPs. Clearly, he has lost his parliamentary mandate. Why does the nation have to suffer until September of this year for another month for the benefit of a small number of MPs who have repeatedly breached the electorate's illegitimate expectation and the Constitution and the very laws, the emergency ordinances that they have themselves created? Time to resign. Thank you. Subscribe, share, like and comment. Good night.